It's amazing that there's a real path to Texas A&M being in the SEC championship game.
Get ready for the 3-point stance. 3 different minds, 3 different opinions. 3 dudes talking ball. It's Kenton. It's Jay. It's Zach. Time to bring the heat, boys.
3-point stance. Zac Blackerby, Jay Smith, Kenton Gibbs here with you. What is going on with Michigan and USC? How are they not good with everything invested into their programs? Is Miami already a playoff team? We'll get to those topics, but first on today's 3-point stance, Texas A&M. Kenton, are you buying that they've got a legit shot to make an SEC championship game? Because look, when you look at what they've done so far in the conference and who else they have to play to get there, the path is starting to make sense for Mike Elko in his first year at Texas A&M.
You know, I can't remember the name of the song, but it's a really, really famous song. And in the song, they say, we've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. The reality is this Texas A&M team can absolutely make it. And I'm not just saying that because Dan Campbell is good to us up there in Detroit and he's America's favorite Aggie right now. I am saying that, however, because you look at the rest of this team's schedule, and other than LSU and Texas, I think they'll be favored in every game. And hell, maybe even including in LSU, because nobody can give up the big game like Brian Kelly. So with that in mind, you could see a path to them finishing with 1 loss in the conference. Which, I'm sorry, look around at everybody. Georgia's already got a conference loss. Bama's already got a conference loss. There is absolutely a world where they could lose to LSU or Texas and somehow end up in a tiebreaker situation and take the lead, or not even end up in a tiebreaker situation because the Boring Company lose 1 more or Kirby and Company lose 1 more. And you end up in that situation where you get 2 back-to-back games against Texas potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, Jay, going into the season, I had A&M as a 9-3 football team, but I also added the caveat of like, they may win 9 games, but I don't think they're going to be as good as a typical 9-win SEC team typically is historically. I thought they would lose against Missouri. I thought they'd lose against Notre Dame, which they did lose against Notre Dame. They blew out Missouri, and then I thought they would just drop another one. Maybe at LSU, maybe Texas, and we'll see. That's certainly on the table here. But as far as conference play, at Mississippi State, they host LSU. They go to South Carolina. I think all of those are gettable. They go to Auburn. No. They're not playing well. And then obviously against Texas, that's their big one.
Yeah, and I believe that their schedule lines them up for the opportunity to go ahead and honestly win all the way out. Now, granted, this is the SEC, and only thing that I've heard every day is the SEC grind is so much that a team can get knocked off anytime. So I'm not going to pretend and say that, them having a 5-game win streak is not impressive, while at the same time pointing out that they are in the SEC and that there's a good chance that South Carolina game could be a trip-up game. Auburn could be a trip-up game.
Come on.
They could pull the upset against Texas at the crib. There's so many variables that can happen in this conference, but the good thing for the Aggies and Aggie fans, y'all's schedule really does line up perfectly for a chance for you to play in the conference championship. Now, this is the funny thing. We're definitely going to stress out that tiebreaker scenario that the SEC proposed, because there is a very good chance at the end of this season, the teams that will be playing in the conference championship will all have 2 losses. And if that's the case, I'm sensing there's going to be probably about 4 or 5 teams fighting for that final spot into the SEC championship game.
But you
Jay
think
Smith, take off those Sooner tinted glasses. All the teams have 2 losses. Every
that's
team.
What I was about to say.
I think that there will be a 2-loss conference champion this year. It just feels like it. The way things have lined up in the SEC, there's going to be a 2-loss SEC champion. I mean, look at it. Georgia's already got a loss. Bama's already got a loss, right? Depending on how Texas plays, they could end up winning out and only having 1 loss and still losing the SEC championship, and that gives them a 2nd loss. But the team they play against will most likely have 2 losses. There's a world where Georgia plays in the SEC championship game with 2 losses. Remember, they play Georgia next week.
Who's the other one? Call your shot then, Jay. Who else beats Georgia this year?
Georgia plays Texas in a week.
So wait, you think Texas is good enough to beat Georgia in the regular season, and then they're a shoe-in to lose to them in the SEC championship game?
I mean, we saw that with Georgia and Alabama. It's not like it's unseen, right? Georgia loses to Alabama in the SEC championship game and then beat them in the national championship. This is not something that has not happened before. It's not something that's unforeseen. Heck, Bama could still run the table and end up in the SEC championship game as a 1 or 2 loss team. This is not something we haven't seen before. This is a very common setup in other conferences. Now the SEC gets to feel the pain of what we've seen in the Big Ten, what we've seen in the Big 12, what we've seen in the ACC. They're actually seeing a lot more parity than people can expect. Heck, Ole Miss could surprise us, right? There's a lot of teams that could shock you this season. Kentucky can go to Texas and beat Texas, right? Look, they gave Georgia hell, and then they beat Ole Miss in Ole Miss. It can happen.
We let y'all have horns down, and it goes to Kentucky and Vandergrift beating Texas.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Look.
Okay.
Let's keep it a buck. Did Kentucky put Georgia in hell?
Yes. Yeah, they did.
Did they beat Ole Miss in Oxford?
That's not the same thing.
There's a possibility.
That's not the same thing.
It is the same thing. Unless you're that high on Texas.
Here's the thing.
Yeah, Texas is the best team in the country right now.
Exactly. I wouldn't have been mad if you would have said, let's not overlook this Texas A&M schedule, because one of us knows on this show all too well the New Mexico State Aggies coming to your school ain't a great thing. It ain't a great thing for SEC.
For the acronym school, you're right.
I've done nothing but love you, Kenton.
I love you too, Zach, but it's the truth. The truth got to be told. But for you to sit here and pretend that Texas is in trouble from Kentucky, I love Stoops and company. I love Deion Walker. I never go against Cass Technicians. That's my boy. That's my guy. He's carrying on a long legacy of great defensive lineman from Cass Tech. But you're telling me that you honestly and truth see Kentucky. I can't even do this today.
Let me put it this way. When Alabama beat Georgia, did you think Alabama was the best team in the country?
Yes. I thought they were one of the better teams in the country.
There we go. That's my point. That's my point. We watched Alabama, even though they gave up that lead, they were cooking Georgia. And we still feel like Georgia is at the level of gauntlet that they've been over the last few years. Now, they not maybe the best. I mean, Carson Beck hasn't been able to lead them anywhere, but Beck did lead them back against a Bama team that we felt like was the best in the country. Then Bama lost, and now we're just going to throw them away, say they're chopped liver? This is the SEC, guys. It happens all the time.
I don't think that's what we're arguing with. You said Kentucky's going to go to Texas, and they could pull off that. You just said it with so much confidence. I think that's what we're tripping over.
Hey, look, we watched Kentucky pull some rabbits out of their behinds on numerous occasions. They're one of the most physical teams in the SEC, and they're one of the teams that like to push people around. There are questions around Texas. Everybody wants to say top to bottom, they're the best team, but they played against a Michigan team, which is considered one of the worst passing defense in college football right now. Go look at the numbers, right? And also, Michigan can't throw the ball. Kentucky can't either, but Kentucky can really run, and they're as physical. So we just got to say, I'm not saying Kentucky's going to win. I'm saying that there is a possibility that we can see upsets, because it feels like this year in the SEC, anybody can go down. Anybody can get it.
My brother in Christ, you're referencing a 19-point win in the big house as like proof that this team ain't that good, and Kentucky's coming in the Darrell K. Royal, and they're going to walk in your trap and take over your trap. And again, I'm going to tell you, you take off them Sooner color glasses, okay? You take them off, all right? We're going to get Venables out of there. Don't worry. We're going to get him back to a defensive coordinator where he belongs. We're going to get you your guy.
Wow, the level of disrespect.
Wow, firing shots on a Tuesday. Hey, is Miami already a playoff team? That's coming up on today's edition of the 3 Point Stance.
And folks, before we talk about whether or not Miami is a playoff team, we've got to talk to you about a team that we've already shown you that has done some great things, and specifically a player in Le'Veon Moss, because today we are talking about Roy. It's the Roy Player of the Week, and that's him. The Roy app lets you directly support your favorite athletes. Unlike collectives where you make a donation to a general fund, Roy lets you choose specific athletes that you want to support. You back the players you care about, and in return get exclusive content after the season, like personal videos and updates. And the best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't create the content, you get your money back. Again, this week, we are choosing Le'Veon Moss of Texas A&M. He had season highs for not only rushing yards, but receiving yards as well, going for 14 touches, 173 yards, 3 tutties, including a 75-yard backbreaker. People, if you can hear the sound of my voice, you get to enjoy watching this young man play football. We contributed $100 to this campaign on Roy and want you to join by making a payment of as little as $10. When enough of us contribute, it's not just about the dollars, it's about the message that we send to these wonderful players. Our collective support helps keep him connected to his school. Plus, Roy is doing their part to bring fans closer to their schools and athletes with an exciting giveaway. Roy is giving one lucky fan 2 tickets to any game of their choice in November. Here's how to enter. Download the Roy app in the App Store or Google Play. Use code LOCKEDON when signing up, and you're entered. Already on Roy, make a payment to any athlete's campaign, and you'll also be automatically entered. No purchase needed, void where prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for official rules. Download Roy and try it out. There's no subscription, no recurring fees, and for as little as $10, you can get in the NIL game. Roy, support players, change the game.
Thank you so much for making the 3 Point Stance your first listen every single day. Our Locked On Canes host, the great Alex Dono, saying that the Canes are a surefire playoff team. Here he is.
The Miami Hurricanes are a surefire playoff team. For one, their schedule, not that difficult. We thought preseason the Florida State Seminoles, who Miami sees in November, would be the toughest out of the year. That team can barely win a game. They're 1-5 so far on the season. Miami is going to be tested at Louisville, but the Hurricanes have something that no other team in the ACC has, and that is Cam bleeping Ward. The guy has been an absolute miracle worker, helping Miami dig their way out of big deficits the last couple of games. Now, of course, the Hurricanes are going to have to play better on defense. They're heading into a bye week now. They have some players they need to get healthy, including defensive end Elijah Alston and starting left tackle Jalen Rivers, who's one of Miami's most important players, hasn't played since the opening game. He's going to be back after the bye week, which should give Ward extra protection and should give Miami's running game an extra pop. So, yeah, Miami Hurricanes, we'll see you in the playoffs.
Surefire playoff team at this early in the season. Jay, is that is that a hot take at this point?
It's extremely hot. Now, granted, their schedule lines up perfectly, similar to like we talked about with Texas A&M, right? They're playing. They're traveling to Louisville. They got Florida State, which we all know is definitely a shell of itself. Duke, who whenever they are on, Malik Murphy is on, but when they're off, they're 100% off. Georgia Tech, Wake Forest coming to town, and they travel to Syracuse and play Fran Brown's newly built team with Kyle McCord. Look, I am one of the biggest advocates for Cam Ward you see out there. Last year, every single week on Bleacher Report, I talked about Cam Ward in Washington State. Then what happened? Right after the bye week, he started to disappoint me, and he gets a little reckless with his play. He gets comfortable with his game. And even though I know that he's really good, there's a good chance he can start to put them in situations like he did last week that they cannot get themselves out of. And so as much as I would like to say that Miami has a great chance, they will still have to face Clemson at the end. But if they play in the ACC championship, they are a shoe-in to the playoffs. All they've got to do is get past these speed bumps. And honestly, there may be one or two in here where they can get a little too cocky and potentially get themselves knocked off.
And that's kind of the Miami's thing, right? It does feel a little different this year, Kenton, with, okay, maybe Miami can actually live up to the expectations that they had going into the season. There's two things I don't love about this argument. One is everybody mentions that going to Louisville is this like brutal test, and I just don't think it is. I think Louisville's been extremely overrated every step of the way this year, and they're going there after a bye week, which I do think will help Miami and Cam Ward a ton. The other one is nobody brings up Clemson, which is the other team that I think they will play in the ACC championship game, and Clemson's playing some pretty good football right now.
I think the problem with that logic is it's assuming that the ACC is a one bid team in a 12-team playoff. This is the first year of 12, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So what world do you see a team who runs the table and has one, maybe two losses in the Power Four being left out? I
think it's the same. I think it's the same world where FSU goes undefeated last year and they find a way
to
get
don't
them
do
out.
this again.
Yeah, I think right now the ACC is a one bid league.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with that, right? The reality of this thing is simple. I think it's so fascinating, and I'm not going to let you, Paul Feinbaum, this show up. I'm not going to let y'all gang up on me because y'all are both SEC guys. It just means more. Here's the reality.
Jay's barely an SEC guy. He's been in the SEC for 5 minutes.
I have been a long-standing member of the SEC for 6 months. Don't be acting like that.
Well, listen, let me tell you what it is, what it ain't, what it could be, and what it can't right here. The reality is simple. SEC players put on their pants one leg at a time, just like everybody else. And I'm sorry to tell you that just because you have an S, a E, and a C on your chest does not mean that you're entitled to 8 of the damn playoff spots. The Big Ten, tell me, who out of the Big Ten, who among us can look at the Big Ten and say, that's a 3, 4, 5 bid league? So who at that point do you have taken up all of the bids? Somebody's got to take these bids. There are 12 of them. And even if we say, okay, great, you get one for the SEC championship, one for the Big Ten champion, one for the ACC champion, one for whoever the next champion is out of the Big 12, and then you get another for Power 5 or a group of 5, you still have 7 left.
Come on, Tulane. Let's go.
Even if we give you that 7, who the hell is taking up all of those 7 out of SEC and the Big Ten? Stop it. And out of the Big 12, you cannot tell me right now there are multiple teams that look worthy. Stop it. Don't play around like that. You cannot tell me there are multiple teams that if you put them up against Miami and Clemson today, they'd be favored. And here's the other thing that most people don't realize that works in Miami's favor. We all know that the playoffs ain't nothing but a popularity contest. We all know that. We all know, right? It's about the brand, baby. It's about the name, baby. And if you talk about what we're going to talk about next with 2 of the biggest, most historical brands being down, we're seeing that with tons of historical brands right now. Florida, Billy Napier's probably going to replace me on this show next year. Billy, I love you. I ain't going to be mad at you. Just swing me a little bit of check. That buyout going to be fat. Y'all need this 3-point stance check. And then you look at a lot of other traditional powers around the country, and you're seeing mid. So go ahead, get ready, throw your U's up. I'm not saying you got to be in a 4-point stance like Michael Irvin to watch the game. I'm saying you got to bow down and understand that Miami is making the playoff this year, whether you like it or not.
I think the most likely scenario is Miami wins the ACC and they beat Clemson in the ACC title game. And if that happens, the ACC is a 1-bid league. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. They're not going to have a 2-loss Clemson in there.
That is insane because you're telling me that at
How
that
is that
point
insane, Kenton?
Because again, I'm not talking about the automatic bids. I'm talking about the 7 extra, right? Of the 7 extra, if Clemson loses a close game to Miami, if it's respectable in the ACC championship game, you're telling me that you can find 7 other teams that you're like, I know for a fact that team's better than Clemson.
I don't think that's the conversation. I think it's, are there 7 other teams that I think the playoff committee will put in?
And I don't. What 7 teams can you name that and I mean this very genuinely. Right now, outside of Ohio State and Oregon, who in the Big Ten is really doing it in a way that you're like, oh, that team right there, that's it. Penn State looks like a phantom every year till a real phantom pulls out. They're a 300 seed. They're a 300 seed every year.
As soon as the playoff expanded, everybody pointed to Penn State and said they're the team that would have benefited the most from this over the last 10 years, and that's going to be the case this year. I mean, based on the current structure, Penn State is going to be in before a second ACC team by a long shot, unless they fall apart before then, which is possible. I'm not going to give that up. That is possible. But to me, I think Penn State is far more likely to be there. So you in the Big Ten, you look at Ohio State, which I guess will probably win it, Penn State and Oregon. So that's a 3-bid league right now. We'll see if anybody else steps up, but I think there's going to be 3 from the Big Ten. I think the Big 12 is a 1-bid league right now. Mm-hmm. We'll see, but right now I think the Big 12 is a 1-bid league.
So that's 4.
Yep. The SEC is where it gets interesting. You have your champion And if it goes the way Jay says, I think that's terrible for the ACC. If the winner has 2 losses, and then you also put in a Texas, and let's say Ole Miss continues to win out, like I think you could have 4 SEC teams in there. But that, to your point, that does leave room. That does leave room for a second ACC team.
And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're a guarantee because they're going to be so dominant that nobody else can compete. I'm saying they're going to be in because who the hell else are you going to put in? You got to start scraping and scrounging and finding arguments for other teams over an 11-win team.
I just don't think they put a 2-loss ACC team in there. I just don't think that they will.
I think they would. I actually think that they would actually toss one in there. Now, this is where things get murky, right? When you look at teams like based upon scheduling, in Oklahoma, of Florida, because they have like quote unquote the toughest schedules in the country. One of them ends up with 9 wins. They probably are going to get thrown in there just because they had to have upset at least 2 big number teams to get in there. It's going to be absurd. We're going to argue about this.
Florida ends up with 9? Are you telling me Oklahoma or Florida ends up with 9 wins at the end of the regular season?
It's not a ridiculous idea.
Yeah, you know what?
Wait, Florida ends up with 9 wins? Is that what you said?
I didn't say Florida ends up with 9 wins. I said there's a possibility based upon their schedule because of how tough their schedule is considered. If they go in there and win some games that they should not win, it's going to get murky. Heck, I think that one of the predictors said that if Oklahoma wins 8 games, they're probably going to be at large, which I think is ridiculous. But at the same time, based upon what the schedule is considered, if teams stay as good as they claim, it's always a possibility. I'm just saying this. We're going to be arguing on this show about who should be in the last week, no matter what. And there's going to be at least 2 teams we're going to say they deserve to be in and they won't get in. And there's going to be 2 teams we're going to say, how in the heck are you in there? And they're going to get in.
I'm sorry, but the games have to matter. You can't be a fall-off team and be one of the see, y'all making me. It's too early in the morning for this. It's too early in the morning, and both of y'all are in further west time zones than me, so I know that y'all are early than me. So I'm gonna try not to scream in y'all ear. I'm gonna try not to scream in y'all ear. But you are out of your ever-loving mind if you are talking about, oh, so what did you lost 4 games? The schedule was such a gauntlet. Well, damn it, Jay, make it through the gauntlet. Sorry, you got tripped up. I wish better luck for you next year. Hey, go win the Red River Robbery or something. Don't care. You will not be in this here playoff with 4 losses.
I am telling you that is the way the committee is going to look at it. And this is why I'm going to say this right now. This is why I hate rankings before the 4th week, because it provides unreal points to a team based upon who they play when teams should not. Missouri should have never been ranked top 10. We'll just put it that way.
Sure. So other teams that shouldn't have been ranked high, Michigan, USC, what is going on? That's next on the 3-point stance.
Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with big returns on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check some stats or watch some like live play-by-play and so much more, you can do all that on the same page that you make your bets. So like right now, Oklahoma is a 14.5-point dog in the Red River, and it's going to be an interesting matchup. And so if you want to take a hold of that number, FanDuel's got you taken care of. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So go check them out over at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook.
What is going on with Michigan and USC? They both continue to lose games at a pace that we did not expect, or at least I did not expect going into the season. Let's start with Michigan, Kenton. Is this a real problem? I mean, obviously a lot of it's a quarterback. There's been a big national story about how they're going to raise $3 million from one guy to go and get their quarterback, whether it's in the portal or through the high school ranks. Is that all this is? Is Michigan doesn't have a quarterback?
No, this isn't just Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. This is Michigan has a few structural problems that you're replacing a bunch of NFL guys, and everybody likes to pretend it's easy because Nick Saban is the LeBron James of college football. He has reset our expectations of what great and what normalcy looks like in real time. And Kirby Smart is kind of following in that trend a little bit of like, oh, we just rebuild year after year. We just go ahead and shake everything up. But even with Kirby, you're starting to see cracks a little bit, with all due respect, in comparison to what we saw from Bama and Saban. And so we're looking at a team that lost its head coach, lost its quarterback. The offensive coordinator becomes the head coach, but in essence, you would de facto have to have a new offensive coordinator as well. Yeah. You're looking at a team that lost a lot, and that's to be expected, that they take a step back. I don't know why anybody said, hey, this team's going to be a national champion again. I said at the start of last year, Michigan is your national champion. Don't worry about it. Go back to Locked On College Football Live if you think I'm lying. And I said this year, Michigan's not going to be anywhere near that level. They're going to be good. They should be all right, but they're not going to be near that level. When we talked about top 10 teams that shouldn't have been ranked anywhere near the top 10 in the preseason, I said Michigan before the season even started.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Jay, it feels kind of weird watching this team because you're so used to them being an elite football team and have a really effective offense, but they're pretty one-dimensional. And if a team's able to slow that down, like Washington was able to do this past weekend, it's just, you've got their number.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I expected out of a Michigan team this year. They're literally a one-dimensional run team, and their goal is to just pound you down, just pound you nonstop. But that becomes a problem when teams recognize that, right? Fill the box. Throw the ball. We double dog dare you. And guess what? Texas told them, we double dog. You know what? We triple dog dare you. No Sykes. Go ahead and try to throw the ball on us. And guess what happened? They couldn't do it. Now, they showed that improvement against the team that we're going to talk about next, which is kind of wild, but, kind of expect at the same time. But the thing about Michigan is that Sherrone Moore is replacing a substantial amount of pieces on this team. And it's going to take him about 2 years to be able to do that. It's not going to be something that's going to be day one. They've shown us some glimmers of hope. But overall, structurally, just like Ken said, they still got some work to do.
Yeah. And then the team you're alluding to, the USC Trojans, already 2 losses on the year, sitting at 3-2 after a loss to Minnesota, which is wild to me. Now they go to Penn State, and I know the opinions of Penn State are varied on this panel, but I think Penn State has a chance to just blow USC out of the water. And then all of a sudden USC sitting here 6 games into the season at 500.
In the words of Lil Yachty, it gets cold like Minnesota. You need to stay up out the streets if you can't take the heat. And clearly USC can't take the Big Ten heat. Now, with that being said, I said that Penn State is a 300C. Well, right now, USC is an old beat down doom buggy. Okay, this is not a serious team. And to be honest, Lincoln Riley, yeah, absolutely, they're a doom buggy because Lincoln Riley is Cliff Kingsbury, just a less attractive version. Let's just be honest with ourselves right now. This man has done precious little in terms of national accomplishments and national achievements. The only thing that this man has achieved is making us believe Baker Mayfield was a number 1, Kyler Murray was a number 1, and Jalen Hurts deserved to be drafted in the top 3 rounds. That's his greatest accomplishment. Outside of that, Jay, just a quick question for you, buddy. He coached at your school, right?
He coached there at one point. Yes, he was an Oklahoma Sooner at one point. Yes.
Now, let me ask you this. When he was at Oklahoma, were there any teams there that you felt particularly confident about when they were in the playoffs? Were there any teams that you were like, hey, this team's going to whoop the wheels off some folks? They're going to do some things.
Yeah, there was one team.
Did that team do it?
The 2017 Oklahoma Sooners was the team built by Bob Stoops with the perfect full offense, but we did not have a defensive pulse in the clutch. We were up on Georgia 31-17. So in conclusion of that,
Sony Michel is still running. He's still the most one-dimensional team we could have played and we could have won that game against. That guy ruined it for everybody. But I'm going to say this. Ken, you are 100% correct because that was literally the only team that I thought had a chance. And it was the one that was not built by him.
And now look, what do you get? Looky here. The head coach that could never put it together in a different zone goes to
They're this close, though. They're always this close.
Always
Look at this close.
the
2
bridesmaid.
plays away from being 5-0.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, baby. Never the bride. You're never going to be the one hearing I do. You're never going to be the one on Love is Blind that got that person getting on the knee in front of the little blue screen. It's not going to be you. It's never going to be a team with that man as the head coach. I'm sorry to tell you. It doesn't matter if you're in Troy with the Trojans. It doesn't matter if you're in Norman with the Sooners. It doesn't matter if you're in Ann Arbor with the Wolverines. It doesn't matter if you're in Stanford with the Nerds. It does not matter if he is your head coach. Congratulations. You've capped yourself with a very high cap, might I add. I'm not going to sit here and play like he's trash. He gives you a high cap, but that cap is below a national champion every single time. And you will have years like this where you look up and say, what happened? What is this from time to time?
Yeah. Hey, be sure to like this video. Please subscribe. And thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, go check out our guy, Spencer McLaughlin, on this same very channel. He hosts Locked On College Football. For Kenton Gibbs and Jay Smith, I'm Zac Blackerby, and this has been the 3 Point Stance.